laittaa vaan, että näille ei striimi vielä. Okay. Is the mic on? Okay. No? You probably can hear me. University. We are doing this lecture both online and here at Design Factory at Otaniemi. Aalto University Games Now lecture series is an open lecture series talking about different hot topics of the industry. So every year we have different topics that are current dominant trends or weak signals or anything kind of new things that are forming the things on the industry. This is the 5th installment of the course, and we are super proud to kind of try to experiment this year with social media and some pedagogical aspects of the course. So this is available for also people outside Aalto University, whether as an open lecture series to join us on streams or here physically, or just a part of the curriculum of different schools. We have sessions about roughly once a month, and we always have a guest speakers from the industry or other industry leaders to talk about their expert topics. And every session also ends with a question and answers session, so make marks and notes what you want to ask at the end. And we also have a coffee session, so those of you who are here physically can join us and discuss more with our guest lecturers as well. So yeah, that's about it. We are doing a Facebook Live today, and hopefully that works. So if you are also on Facebook, you can sign in and comment there during the lectures. And without further ado, I'm gonna invite our first guest lecturer, Jaakko Kemppainen, a game designer from different kinds of productions. I think that the last most known game is Pollen. So VR games at least. But he's here today to talk about games that he has played during the past year and reflect a little bit of what he has learned from those games. So one really important thing as a game designer is to look at other games and analyze them and see what you could use as a kind of inspiration or inspiration for your own games. So yeah, welcome Jaakko and enjoy.
Thank you. Should I start with the joke how I changed this to my slides? Let's see. No? I can't use Max. Go help me.
Oh, I can't use it either.
Yes.
I'm just pretending. Okay, there it is.
Excellent. Thank you.
Oh.
It's so easy to use.
It just works.
It just works.
Okay, there you are.
Oh, thank you. Right. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me again here. This is my most interesting and favorite session during the whole year. I've been here a couple of times before, and I really enjoy speaking here. Today I'm going to speak about something I thought I learned about the games that I have been playing during the last couple of years or last year or something, and games that have also been published kind of lately during 17 or 16. So, who am I? Of course, this is quite subjective lecture. I'm talking a lot about what I have played, what I've learned, what I like, and so on. So, my name is Jaakko Kemppainen, as you have already heard and seen. I'm currently unemployed game designer. Previously, I was working as a lead game designer at Minefield Games, a studio that was focusing on VR games, but as you might know, the VR business is quite difficult right now, and we had to shut down the studio and let everybody to search for new opportunities. So I'm currently searching for new opportunities. I've been working with games or around games and game industry for about 15 years now, and in many companies, doing some freelance projects, joining startups. Quite often I have been riding the first wave or doing something that has not been done before, and maybe that's because the kind of reason why you haven't heard about me, because all of those things have failed. But somebody has to do that job. I have some 20-something games participated as professional and so on. A couple of master's degrees. The latest one is from Aalto University. I was among the first students who were accepted to the game design thing here, and among the first students that actually graduated from there 3 years ago. Yes. And as a gamer, I'm kind of explorer, achiever, and mastermind, if you know the Bartles and brain hacks and kind of these player profiling things. So this kind of explains something about why I play certain games and why I play certain games in a way that I play them. It's I like solving puzzles and devising strategies, as well as collecting anything you can collect or doing everything you possibly can, so kind of achieving, and I like achievements and so on. But there's also the other side that I am not. I don't like punishment. I dislike struggling to overcome seemingly impossible challenges and repeating the same task over and over again. And we will come back to these things later. And as a game designer, it's really important to know who you are and who you are not. And it's really important to understand that you represent only kind of one part of the possible player population. There are people who are like you, and then there are even more people who are not like you. And when you are making commercial games, it's crucial to understand that you also have to think about other people. For example, who I am. I usually play older games because new games are too expensive. It's just I'm not willing to pay, I don't know, 70 euros for a game. 15, 20 is quite okay, but there are only few games that I'm willing to pay more. I'm not very good at games, or I don't know if I can succeed in like competitive games really well. It's kind of, well, especially action games. I'm old and I'm slow and I'm getting older and slower. So it's kind of, they are getting more and more difficult for me, and I find myself playing more and more strategic game, role-playing games, adventures, and so on. But I like playing action games. I just put them on the easiest difficulty, so I can like enjoy the flow and get not stuck in somewhere. This is quite funny to say that I'm not very technology enthusiastic. Since I was working at like high-end VR company for 2.5 years, we were like really riding the first wave of the like consumer level VR stuff and so on. But for me, VR was just another platform. It's just like something that enables and restricts your game design. And there's wonderful thought from a wonderful book called Antifragile. I found this book from Ilari Kuittinen's GDC lecture, and he was like giving the whole lecture about like an idea of antifragility and how it relates to his work. And you really should read that book. I'm not going to tell you more about that, but things will probably be available as long as they have been available. So let's think about like books have been available for 3,000 years, 6,000 years, I don't know, quite many years. They are probably going to be available another 3,000 or 6,000 years. Like Shakespeare's work has been here for 400 years. It will be available probably for 400 years, or you will be able to access them after 400 years, and so on. VR has been available for 3 years. You probably will be able to access it in the next 3 years, but it may also disappear. So it's kind of time validates the media, and that's quite interesting. And we will also get back to this later. And I'm not really competitive player. I just don't feel it's like losing a game doesn't make me feel angry or sad or anything. It's like, all right, let's move on. So it's something that quite often is different from other gamers. And I almost never play online. Even when I play World of Tanks, I think the others are bots, and I'm not interested in chatting to other people and so on. And if you have checked the list of games that I have been playing during the last year or something, you can see it's quite, there's a lot of variety there, really different games, and I like to explore games. I like to try different games, but I also sometimes end up like stuck in something and play like it really a lot. All right, but since this lecture was about games that I have been playing, let's go to the games. Couple of big picks from that previous list. I'll start with Lydia. I think it's probably the most important Finnish game, at least this year, maybe ever. It's a point-and-click adventure game but it's a story about a little girl that has alcoholic parents, and you are playing the little girl, and then you immerse yourself into like kind of I would say metaphorical, allegorical world where the alcoholism and things like that, they are monsters, and you are in the like story world and trying to survive there. And I really think why this is the most important Finnish game is that I think games can and should be art. The games also can be something else. They can be just like for fun and for entertainment, and that's completely fine. But we also have room for games that are art. And this game grows from the personal experiences of the developers. They have some kind of connection to this girl and her story. And that's something that is I think it's important if we are going to like expand our horizons of the games. We have to bring our own personalities into the games and so on. And interesting possibility with the games when you compare them to other forms of art is that games require actions from the people. You actually have to do something in the game world to like progress the story and experience the stuff like there. So it gets your attention much better. It's also like possible to handle difficult or problematic topics, like for example this alcoholism and so on. And then I give you another link to other media. One of my favorite things that I have seen in last couple of years is the video in YouTube by Mike Hill, and he's like tearing Terminator 2 apart and going through like the thematics and the structures and everything. Everybody should, after this lecture, everybody should go and see that video. It's awesome. Don't start right now. Luckily, you don't have at least here. All right. Computers. But the idea of that video is that a message or strong theme doesn't necessarily make the game worse. You may have a wonderful action game, like for example Terminator 2. It's one of the best action movies ever, but there's like really strong thematics behind the like visual glory that the movie has and all the action and everything. And if we could learn something from there and get those ideas to games, then we are really talking about like something wonderful. I think we definitely need more games like this, more art games. We are living 2017, and Finnish game industry is mostly about business and dollars and euros, and then about technology and VR and watches and whatever. But there's also room for and need for drama, action, comedy, and everything else, and strong themes like family values and whatever. In the heart of almost all art is a personal experience, something that is growing inside you, something that you feel, and it's quite rare, especially in the context of commercial games, that the developers can actually bring out their own feelings, own ideas. We are always like trying to make the product like looking and working in a way that they sell as much as possible. But there are other possibilities also. The Lydia has a strong symbolism. It's like heavily allegorical, much of like metaphors there, and we could learn something from the film, literature, music, poetry. They all have had these elements before games, but games don't yet have that much. There are games that have those, but not yet enough. All right, let's go forward. Another game I played lately, and it was kind of on the same field of art and personal experiences or something like that, maybe like social commentary, is Orwell. A game where you play a guy who is like following and investigating your fellow citizens and trying to like prevent crimes before they happen or something like that. It's almost like reading a book. The game consists mostly about just text and a couple of pictures, and you are reading the text. You are reading like people's web pages, their chat histories, emails and everything, trying to find clues, trying to connect people to the crimes and to other people and so on. And in a way, the game mechanics of this game, they are like quite shallow, and the content is more important than the game mechanics. And I think that is kind of a like rising trend, especially when you look at the Walking Dead adventure games, Game of Thrones, and so on. So I don't know, there is not really much of the gameplay there. You don't have many choices. Every now and then you can make some choices, but most of the time it feels like it's just like a TV series that is quite difficult to follow because you have to do something to like advance the story. And this has the same thing. This is a book that you have to actually do something to follow the story. It's called ergodic literature. It's like literature that is made somehow difficult to follow. And I'm quite happy that we are seeing more and more of these kind of old media brought into the games sphere and added some game-like elements, game mechanics for the story, because I think these games kind of when you are reading something like this and you actually have to do, there's like action required from you. You actually go deeper into the story, and you feel much more stronger when you are doing this. So it's kind of a good way to make people more immersed, just make them do something. And a wonderful thing with this game is that it is truly first person. It's like absolutely first person thing, because it is you. There's no other character between yourself, your mind and body, and the game. The game interface is a kind of computer interface, and when you see that on your monitor, well, you are actually like using the software in the game and doing the stuff. So that's really wonderful. That's something that VR is achieving when it's like giving you the motion controls, and then it's putting your body into the game world and so on. But we'll get back to that later. Nice dilemma here. People read less books but play more games. How does this relate to the game that is a book? Do people play and read this less or more? I don't know, but it's fun to think about it. This is kind of social impact game in a way that it puts you in a position that you actually have to think about like our own society. What is actually happening in the world? And if you have read Orwell's 1984, you kind of have the idea, or maybe you know it some other way, but you kind of have the idea of like what this game kind of what kind of questions it asks and what kinds of problems it handles. There are other really like nice games, entertaining, touching games that do the same thing. For example, if you have played Papers, Please, where you play like a border guard of like kind of Soviet country, and then you have to make decisions, can you let people in the country or not, and then your mother is dying and you have to just get enough money from your work so you can buy her medicine, and then there's like some terrorist coming and offering you money, and what you do, and difficult questions. Also this War of Mine, where you play like civilians in a war zone and try to survive there. It's really touching and really makes you think the war zones in the world in a different way. And my favorite of these kind of games, which really like are commentaries of the events in the world now or in history, is Brenda Romero's The Train. It's kind of installation of a board game where people are like optimizing the way they put the like small yellow characters in the train cars and send them away. And at some point you find out that maybe this typewriter beside the game board that actually has a swastika key over there, it has something to do with your own actions. You are actually like sending little yellow people to like a destruction camp, and that's quite rough for some people to find out that you were actually optimizing your actions. You were playing a game, but on the same time you were doing something completely horrible. And that raises the question of players' morale, and we have been having these moral panics every now and then. I think quite many of you remember some Call of Duty game where you are attacking the airport as a terrorist and killing all the civilians and so on. And of course that was like a Hollywood take on this question, but there are like quite many games that also they are like making you the question who you are, why are you doing this, do you want to do this, and if you do, why you are doing, would you do this in the real world? I was kind of enjoying playing the Grand Theft Auto 4. In the beginning, I played it maybe 10-15 hours or something, and it was quite okay. I was trying there, not trying to like avoid all the civilians, not trying to kill everybody, but just being the like good guy who is trying to get away from the mafia circles and achieve proper citizenship. But then in one mission I had to go into a house and kill some lady or something like that. And that was too much for me. I couldn't do that mission. I stopped playing it and uninstalled the game and continued with something else. So maybe I just think too much, or maybe everybody should think this much. These are like questions of who we are, what are our moral values and so on. All right, then something completely different. Batman Arkham VR. I don't know. How many of you have tried VR devices and VR games? Excellent. How many of you have tried PSVR, PlayStation VR? Couple. All right. Yeah. Has anyone played this game? And this is one of the biggest games in VR currently. Nobody has tried it. Maybe that tells something about the state of the business. I think this is one of the best made, best designed VR games that I have played. Let me introduce you the Batman problem, which I maybe was talking about like a year ago on the same stage. That was my first time I was talking about it, and now I'll come back because the video of the last year's lecture is gone, so I have to rephrase it. The Batman problem is that when you are playing Batman games, it kind of promises that you can become a superhero. You can be like the savior of the Gotham City. You can fly above the rooftops and beat up the bad guys and do everything fancy and so on. And when you play, for example, other Batman games like Arkham Asylum or something like that, you actually are doing it, and you are just like controlling the guy over there, and you can see him like following your instructions quite nicely. And then there's like wonderful fights where you do all these like loops and kicks and bunches and so on, and it feels really great. But when we go to virtual reality, the great thing with virtual reality is that it's really like it immerses you and your own body and your mind into the world. So you have kind of presence in the game world. So when you have all these controllers, like hand controllers and stuff, and you you can walk around and then you can see that the world actually changes in your view, and then you can wave your hand and you can see how wonderful these are my hands in the game world, and then it's like 15 minutes have passed and all right, maybe I should do something in this game also. But it's really great. That's the kind of wonderful thing in VR. It's like it gives you the presence of yourself in the game world. But it also means that when you want to play Batman game, it actually means that the Batman actually becomes like 40-year-old nerd with bad legs and no martial arts skills. And if I was trying to do everything that Batman is doing, it would like be really crappy, and nobody would believe that he's going to save the Gotham City. So it's kind of in VR quite often it's like my body and mind would be doing the Batman's job, and that's like no. That's what I call a Batman problem. This game, of course, because it's a Batman game, it should be it should include this Batman problem, but it avoids it really wonderful way, because being Batman is also something else than gliding above the rooftops and beating up the bad guys. It's also about investigation of crime scenes and whatnot, and using the gadgets and everything else. And this game allows you to do that, which feels really good in VR. You actually have all these kinds of gadgets, hooks and boomerangs and everything, and you can use them, and it's great. You kind of feel that you actually are in the world. Although you cannot move around, you cannot walk really far away from the hotspots where the game lets you go, but it still feels pretty good. And whenever you have to drive a car or fly somewhere or have a fight or something, then it's handled. I think most of the time, or maybe always, it's handled off screen. It just happened, and then you are in the time after the event. So it's kind of picking the pieces that work in VR and just like trying to forget something that doesn't work. And it's a really wonderful take on the possibilities and kind of limitations of virtual reality as the virtual reality is right now. We have to remember virtual reality is only like a couple of years old, or the consumer VR has been here for a couple of years. We are still trying to learn that what it even is and what is the language of VR. We don't know it. It will take us maybe decades to understand, because it's much more complicated than, for example, film. And the film language has been developing for 120 years or something, and we are still learning new things. And first couple of decades of film were really something completely different from what films are right now. So we are just taking baby steps of VR and trying to understand what we are actually trying to achieve, what we can do here, and how we can maybe bend the limits. And this kind of led me to this idea of that our brain is a multi-layered system. There are at least 3 layers of thinking over there. If you look at Mike Hill's film or the video, you will learn more about that. I read a book called The VR Book, quite humble, right? First 200 pages are great, and then it's mostly boring. But maybe the first 100 pages, it's handles human psychology in a way that it doesn't tell you how to make games. It tries to make you understand how our brain works, and so you could use that knowledge when you are designing games or other things for VR. There's a concept of sensation and perception there, and basically it means that sensation is the raw data that comes to for example, to your eyes. It's all the photons that hit your visual nerves and so on. And then there's the perception, which means that it's how you perceive your sensation. Your brain has already done some processing of that raw data. It has made connections to your previous knowledge, your maybe your kind of sense of where you are now. So your brain kind of calibrates the lighting and everything else there. And then it kind of brings the perception of the sensation into your conscious mind. And that's the data that you actually can use to make decisions when you are whatever playing games, or if you are reading books or something like that. And this also kind of relates to this question of what kind of data and user interface stuff and everything else we can and should give the player. Because here's my first big point of today, is like interfaces are our superpowers. We are mapping our skills and our senses, or the games are mapping our skills and senses to something else. For example, pushing a button in Batman makes the guy jump and do something awesome. It's like, how cool superpower is this? Like jumping and doing and kicking people and winning battles just by flicking your fingers. It's awesome. And also on the other side, when the games are showing you some user interface elements like tracks of the bad guys in the game world, or some other information in the game world, it's not cheating. It's just like trying to put yourself into the role of the character in the game. It's trying kind of building a perception layer of that raw game data, between the raw game data and your like conscious mind, and trying to provide you the same kind of information that the game character has in the game world. And it's also can do like mapping of some senses to other senses. Like some games, they visually show the like smells of the world, which is like mapping the senses to different senses, and it's quite an interesting thing. And I know many people dislike these kind of things because it feels like it's not real. It's just like cheating because I get all this like extra information from the world. But I think it's more about like the question of who is the character in the world. If you are playing Batman, then it's quite natural that you have all these like super senses and mad skills and whatever. But if you want to be yourself in the game, you try to like figure out how to navigate Gotham City or something else yourself, or maybe jumping down the roof without any help, and then maybe we should just turn off all these like helps and interfaces and take off the superpowers, and you have to try out how you can actually manage the problems with your like really own superpowers, if you have any. Right, let's move forward. I think quite many of you know, at least on some level, the Quantum Break, Remedy's latest huge adventure action game. I'm quite a big fan of Remedy's games. I enjoy the storytelling and like they have like kind of tongue in the cheek humor every here and there, but they also do something like really well and really seriously, and that's a wonderful combination. And also the action, for me as an explorative player who is not interested in much fighting, it's quite good. I know some people don't agree with me. Some people say that, oh, that is crap because Dark Souls has much better combat systems or whatever. I don't care. It probably has better combat systems, but this is good for me. And it's good for the story. What I really liked in this Quantum Break game, and also in previous games, is that Remedy is trying to push the limits of the narrative somehow. For example, in this game they have long cutscenes, like videos, and with quality actors, which is wonderful. It's like they are doing some really great acting work, especially when you compare that to the like most of the other acting work in the games, which is usually like overacting and overreacting, and it looks just stupid. Long cinematic episodes, and they are somehow affected by the gameplay decisions that you make. It's great, and I hope we are going to see that kind of things more in the future. But also I would say that usually these like long scenes are too long. I just get bored. Even if I like the story, I like the storytelling, but it's just like sitting down for 15-20 minutes just watching the like TV show when you want to play a game. It's it's good sometimes. Usually it just breaks the flow. But Remedy took a really wonderful try in this, and they were trying to push the limits, and I hope that something beautiful will born out of this. I like that Remedy always kind of references the earlier work. For example, the picture over there, you can see there's a first Max Payne, and just a couple of frames from here he was having the clicker from the Alan Wake. So it's kind of triple reference to the history of the company. And quite often they also break the fourth wall, which means they are somehow implying that this is not happening really. We know that we are in a video game, and we know that you are over there on the other side of the screen. I know for many people that sucks. It breaks the immersion, and that's like the purpose of the thing, to break the immersion. But it also has like really great possibilities for the storytellers and so on. And of course they have a lot of humor in the world. Quite often it's kind of cheesy, but it's always in a way that the characters are not telling the stories. The world just happens to be like in a way that there are like funny things in the world, and so on. So the characters are living in a bit like quirky world, and it's always wonderful to find these small details in there for me as an explorer. But yeah, with this game, beside like pushing the limits of the narrative, they also made me pushing the buttons. The game makes it possible to explore. It's like when I have like killed all the enemies, I usually have time to go around and search for secret stuff and all these like power-ups and so on. And that's a bit different from what happened with Max Payne, which is not Remedy game. Max Payne 3. Max Payne 3 was like really frustrating for me, because I was thinking like, all right, I will like win this battle, which is set in like obvious arena somewhere. Whenever you go to the space, you see like, all right, this is going to be a battle arena, because there are like covers, and then there's breaking stuff and so on. And quite a lot of action games do this, and I find it like really stupid. I don't like it at all, but I know that I am not action gamer, and I know that many action gamers who really enjoy the battle, they want to see the arena beforehand, they want to like devise strategies for the battle, and they want to like understand the space where they are going to fight. But for me it looks like, all right, the world is built completely out of like battle zones, and where are the normal people, and how do they live in this how do the normal people live in places like this? And Max Payne 3 did this thing that when you have won the battle, you are walking around there, and suddenly just like if you go too close to the like ending point, it just takes the controls away from you, shows a little cutscene where you open the door and go to the next place, and you cannot go back. And that sucks. It was not my decision to continue the gameplay. And quite often it also means that right after the fight, there will be another fight. And I get exhausted. somehow I just my cognitive processes get overloaded after one fight, and I need some time to just explore and cool down and think about, like, all right, what this means. Oh, here's nice some stuff I can collect and build some weapons or whatever. But quite often in action games, you just don't, or at least I don't have enough of those pauses. So I often like end up like beating the battle, and then I just quit, and I come back next day or a couple of days after and continue playing because it's like too demanding for me. So Quantum Break gives me the possibility to explore, to find all the stuff and so on. But it also often requires me to use the interface. I can't see some important stuff in the world without using the like special power, which feels a bit stupid because that means that I walk like for 5 meters, then I turn to like use the kind of, I don't know, radar there and see like, is there anything? No. Then I move like 5 meters. Not yet. Yeah. So the flow of the game for me is, or the flow of the exploration for me, it's kind of broken. I would love to have those elements in the world, but I would like to see them without using the like special interface user power, whatever that is. And what I said earlier about this like perception and sensation thing, I quite often think that it's better to design for the perception, so give the like superpowers for the player. But in this case, I would like to have like less superpowers, or at least some way to find the things without using the like actively using the whatever time seeing, stopping skill that is. Right. Let's continue with action. I'm not an action player, but it seems like here is some action games. When I was young, 25 years ago or something, not long ago, there was this game called Doom, and everybody played it, and it was awesome. And then we had our friends coming to our houses, and we connected the computers, like 2 computers with one wire, and we played against each other, and it was the greatest thing ever, almost. And then there was more Dooms, and then there was Quake, and you know the story. But now they decided to make like new Doom. And of course, it's kind of, you kind of wait for something, and it delivers. It's same old. There are like familiar features. There's a lot of speed when you compare it to Call of Duty or whatever. There are like really large, complex levels, and wonderful thing is that at least most of the time you can, when you go through the level, you can backtrack your way back to the like beginning of the level, and then you can try to find out all the secrets and everything. So it's really great for explorers like me. A lot of secrets there, like small doors and like secret doors and so on. So it's the thing that one thing that made the first Doom great was that like you actually can find secret door by going walking to the wall and like pressing the open key or something like that. It was good. And of course there are masses of enemies, and the like action sequences are quite quick and fast, and you actually have to be quite like good in this action shooting if you want to survive and if you want to progress in the game. But it's also fresh, and that's really important. And I think here are a couple of points that are really like games now. It's the like what games are today, and kind of familiar feature from other action games. The first Doom didn't have character development at all. You just find out new weapons, and then you have this power-ups of better armor and invulnerability and invisibility and so on. But in this game you actually can find some parts and stuff that you can make your weapons greater. You can choose the way your weapons work in the secondary action mode, and then you can develop your armor, which is almost like your own character in this game, which is also wonderful. It provides a lot to the gameplay. There are these glory kills, which is good and bad, I would say. Glory kill means that when you are shooting an enemy, at some point, if you didn't kill it immediately, it starts to glow, and then you can walk next to it and press the melee fighting button, and then your character goes and rips its head off and whatever. Awfully violent stuff there. And I think these kind of mini cutscenes are something that has been happening in the action games during the last maybe 5 years. They happened in Max Payne 3 too much, and I also think that they are happening in this game too much, especially when you are playing on the harder difficulty levels, because when you are doing the glory kill, it also provides you some extra health and so on, and if you are playing on harder levels, or if I am playing on harder levels, I'm always in edge of dying. I need that extra health, and I have to do this so I can survive. All right. I'm not sure if I had to have it in the next slides, but it works quite nicely. I played through the game on the easiest level. It was really fun for me, and I didn't have to use the glory kill system too much. I could use it whenever I want. But then I started playing it on harder level, and it became a nuisance. It's like I have to use the glory kill every now and then the game takes the controls away from me for a couple of seconds. I have to look at the really bloody, gory cutscene, and then I can continue playing. And it kind of makes the pacing and feeling of the game going like this. It stops every now and then, and it doesn't feel that good anymore. It looks nice, and it's a great idea, but in the end, it probably doesn't work as well as they were thinking. The game offers also challenges, like if you find some runes in the world, you can enter a challenge mode or kind of arena where the game gives you some mission you have to do, and then you get some. If you manage to do that, then you can get some extra power-ups for your character, and that's something that didn't happen in the first game. It's also something that feels a bit strange in this world where you start in the Mars and then you go to hell and then you can come back to Mars again or something like that. And then suddenly there are these portals that take you to some arena and give you challenges. It's like, what? Why? What is this place? What are this arena? Are there any viewers that are watching my battle in this arena? Am I just prop of entertainment of some extraterrestrial races or whatever? But if you don't think that too much, then it's just quite nice game mechanics and element of the game that makes you really push your limits and try what you can actually do. And if you perform well, then you can get better in the game. You get better weapons or whatever. But it also makes the game easier because you get better weapons and then you are better in killing the enemies. So it's kind of contradicting idea, but anyways, it's nice. It was entertaining to do that. And then faced waves of enemies on the same arena. I think in the first Dooms it was like you go to the room, it's full of demons, or then they are teleporting there, and when you finish the room, that's it. But in this game you kill almost everybody and suddenly there are more of them and you don't know how long it's going to take. But that's the how things work nowadays. Wonderful thing with this game is that the exploration is here. for me as an explorative player. For the demons of the game, they are just like obstacles and facing elements of the exploration. I know this game should be played in a way that the battle is the main thing and you always want to fight, and if you don't have any enemies you run somewhere and try to find more enemies to kill. But for me it's like I want to kill everybody and then I have like an empty map and then I can go and try to find all the secrets. And this game actually lets me to do that, which is excellent. I would also say that it would be a really dull game if there were no enemies. It's like walking in these arenas and surroundings made for battle, and then there is no battle. It's like walking in an like abandoned mall. There are no shops anymore. It's just, yeah, it looks great, wonderful pictures can be taken, but there's nothing to do. Yeah, and this is something I think quite often when we think about or talk about exploration, we think about like exploration of space. For example, walking through maps and rooms and trying to look around in our surroundings and trying to find something interesting. But here and also in other games, it's also like exploration of weapons, armors, and abilities. Trying out different weapons, how they work, what could I do with them, and so on, and how different kind of like combinations of armors and power-ups work. It's kind of, I would say, it's related to the way I play World of Tanks in a way. I have played maybe 8,500 games of World of Tanks. And quite many players should already be on the top tier, somewhere on the tiers 9 or 10, having the best tanks and so on. But I just decided that I want to try out every tank in this game. So I have been mostly playing with like first like really crappy tanks in the beginning of the game, and I also find out that if I try to advance to like tier 6 or 7, then the game becomes too difficult for me. The players who are on those tires, they are way better than I am, and most of the time I'm just like driving there and then I die. So it's not fun for me anymore, but it has been really fun to explore all the different tanks. I have driven maybe 150 different tanks in that game, and it has been giving me so much pleasure. It has been so fun. Also, the like crappiest tanks are quite often the funniest ones, because it's like the name can be like light tractor. It's like light tractor, and it's like that piece of crap with a machine gun. It's fun, but it's also exploration can be exploration of possibility space. Trying out what you can do in the game. Probably trying to like play the system, try to break the game, try to find glitches, I don't know, some way to like do something that hasn't been like designed by the designers, and also like combat maneuvering and doing something, trying to reach some places that probably were not meant to be reached, and so on. And I don't know if the original rocket jump from Quake or something was actually designed that way, but I think that the way why it's so like well-known tactics and game mechanics is that the players were exploring the possibility space, and actually like if you shoot a rocket down to your feet, you are flying quite high, and that's became kind of thing in these like shooters. And of course, achievements. As an achiever, I love achievements, and I also know that many people don't like it. I know many people say that achievements are just like some crap that is built on top of the game. They don't belong into the game. They should be forbidden from the world. But for me, achievements are something really great. They give me some external motivation to do something that I was not like thinking that I could do. I'll come back to these achievement things a bit later. But exploration is something that I enjoyed in Doom, although it's like designed mostly for fighting. And that's something, when you are making your games, you could probably try to provide also something to the other kinds of players. You maybe should have this like one focus group that, yeah, I'm making this game for the action fighter player, whatever. But if I can provide something for the other types of players and like secondary gamer types of these action gamers, then maybe the game will be better. I think that it won't take anything away from the like your main target group, but it will provide something else, something more, and make the game better. Oh yes, Curious Expedition. How many of you have played the game? Yes, 2. So more than Batman VR. This is, I think this is a bit older game. It has been in early access for a while, but it came out of early access this spring or something, and that's when I bought it. Curious Expedition is like all about exploration of, not all, but it's much about like exploration of possibility space. It's one of my most anticipated games lately. I really love great expeditions, like the like Victorian era when people were going to Africa and wherever and trying to find out the like wonderful treasures and trying to map the world before there were airplanes. And that's really fascinating because it's all about exploration. It's also kind of roguelike, which is quite common, especially among the so-called indie scene currently. Quite a lot of games are claiming that they are roguelikes. I disagree with most of those things, because for me, being roguelike, it's being like really complex system that even the designers don't know what will happen if the players are doing something. And it's not just about like generated maps and doing a couple of strange scripted things. Historical characters are actually kind of real people from the Victorian era or something. You can play as Marie Curie or Johann something that I can't pronounce. But I chose the Johann something that I can't pronounce for obvious reasons. The people who have read something about like theory of games, they know why. It's great. All of those characters, they have different abilities and disabilities, and that's a wonderful combination of history and gameplay. And of course, the game has quite nice pixels. There are a couple of reasons why the game is like Rogue. There are generated maps. Every time you start the game, it like generates a map, and then you go and try to find out what the map has, and maybe you find some rare butterflies and you catch them, and then you get them to the museum and you get fame. Fame is the most important thing in the game. It's like points of the fame is compared to the other characters who are doing their own expeditions in the game. And you can find like some temples or like villages and talk to people and so on. Quite a lot of those things. It's quite complex system with many moving parts. Most of the time you can quite easily understand how these things connect to each other's. Wonderful thing with this game is that it is possible to win, even as a regular mortal guy like me. I have done or played through the game several times, which is not the case with, let's say, NetHack. If you know NetHack, you know how difficult it is to beat or ancient domains of mystery. It's like there are maybe 5 people in the world who have actually beaten the game, but it's really fun to play still, because the system is so complex and so there are so many emergent elements there that it just keeps giving all the time. This game, of course, it has a huge promise of emergence, emergent things, the system that combines certain things and something unexpected happens. Wonderful. And then there's one of the modern, I would say, trends that this game has dice as a metaphor for fighting. You actually, when you enter the fight, you can see all the enemies and your troops, and then you have dice there, and then you press button and roll the dice, and you choose something from there, and combine kind of attacks and defenses in the fight. And I think that game developers have for some reason they have gone back to something that we had already 3,000, 4,000 years ago, dice and cards, because, well, they were there 3,000 years ago, they will be there here 3,000 years from now. They are something eternal, something that we have in our gamer genes, or we have them in our culture. They are really easy to understand, and for some reason, maybe it's because of Hearthstone and something else, they have everyone is having cards and or dice and these really old stuff in their games in different roles. Well, it's also not like Rogue. It's as I said maybe earlier, most of these roguelikes nowadays, I don't think they are roguelike. Well, actually, I think Rogue is not roguelike anymore. The original Rogue was quite simple game, and what became the I would say the reference point of roguelike games is NetHack, which is maybe the most complex game in the world, or pretty close to Dwarf Fortress, or how do you maybe you know the game. So my benchmarks are NetHack and Ancient Domains of Mystery, which are really complex systems. And when I play roguelike games, I'm like, yeah, this is not roguelike. This is something on generated map and some random stuff. But the systems are not. There are not enough moving parts there. And if there are lots of moving parts, they are kind of isolated from each other. They don't work together to generate something completely different. And that's something, if we want to make good generative content, we have also think about this how all these little things work together, what could be born out of them, and how could we kind of enable them to work even outside of my own control as a designer. If we can do that, then that's interesting. It enables some surprises even for the makers of the game. But in this game, I can't remember a time when I went to Holy Altar and stole everything and nothing happened. Always when I steal the stuff from the altar, something awful happens after that, and it's all right, I know something is going to happen, so why would I take this? This makes me think this game as kind of Harlequin series of exploration roguelike. And I'm not saying that this is romantic novel or anything. I just say it feels like every time I play the game, it's just cut with the similar cookie cutter. There are not enough different kind of cookie cutters for different stories in this game. So it's not enough roguelike to be a roguelike. Yes, my favorite of all times, ever. Civilization 6. I think I bought this game. This is maybe one of the 2 or 3 games that I actually pre-ordered and paid a lot of extra money to get everything. I have played it for about a year and about 400 hours. All right. So, Civilization series has been with us for, I don't know, 25 years, something. The first one was published in 91, I guess, 92, somewhere back in the time when I was young and pretty. There has been a lot of like sidekicks also, like the Alpha Centauri and Colonization and something else. But I've tried them, and I think that Civilization series, the original, like Civilization and Number, is the thing. I think most of you know it and should know it. If you don't know, shame on you. Here are my picks for the top 5 improvements from earlier Civilization games. The first is multi-hex cities. In the beginning, there was the like squares, and you can fit your like city in one square, and if it had like one guy living there or 1 million guys living there, it was still like one hex, and you can fit all the like world wonders and everything into one square or hex. But in this game, they made this really wonderful decision that you actually build like districts. You have the like central hex is the city center where you can only build a couple of different things. And if you want to have the universities and libraries and everything, then you have to like build a campus area somewhere in your area next to the city. And you can build libraries and stuff only inside that area. And then if you want to have the like commercial area, then you have to have another hex for that. And that means that the city building requires a bit more strategic thinking. The districts get bonuses from surrounding hexes and other districts also. So you basically, if you want to optimize your gameplay, you have to think about the whole city, maybe having like 5-hour event horizon somewhere. Like, yeah, I'm going to build this city for university and religion and commerce, and I probably should put these all districts next to each other so they are easier to protect with spies and military and so on. This also short reference to Karolina Korppo's TED Talk, which I saw the video a couple of days ago. She was talking about city skylines and how it actually works as a city development or planning tool. And then I found an, like she was talking about some urban designer, and I went to see his TED Talk, and it was about like walkable cities, where we should get rid of all these districts, because that means that if we have these districts, everything is far from you, and we should have like some small shops and sports arenas and stuff like that right next to your like living place, so you don't have to like have a car and travel across the city to get to play football. But this actually like works just like it. We shouldn't build our cities. Yeah. Next one, separate technology and culture trees. There were hints of this earlier also in Civilization 5, but now I think they work really well together. It's like the culture tree defines your possibilities for different governments. And governments, when they develop, you actually get some kind of government cards that you get bonuses from different things, and you can choose from the cards. Notice the cards again. you can choose from the cards which ones you are having in your civilization, so which kind of bonuses you want to get, and there can be like something for commerce, something for diplomacy, something for army, and so on. I think that works really well, and it takes something like really stupid things away from the technology trees that have felt like these are not actually technologies. They are something that just happen without research in our societies. A wonderful thing, one of my favorites, and the inspirations are maybe the thing why I'm like really bad at this game, and that's why I love them. Inspirations mean that on each technology, each cultural step, they have kind of inspiration. Some task that if you complete the task, then you get half of the research done already. For example, this I'm really sure you can see here the military tactics over there. It's already half research, and that has the task that kill a unit with a spearman. So if I manage to do that, then I already have that thing half done, and I can complete it much quicker. And that drives me to always like building this stuff and doing these things and trying to get things half done before I start researching it. And then I just lose my focus on what I'm doing, and I just keep doing this, and then I lose the game. But it's fun because I'm not afraid of losing. So that's something that also well used, you can actually like, I think you actually have to use those things if you want to complete and win the game on the harder difficulties. But it's also like balancing system that if you are lacking something, you are falling behind the others. At some point you end up doing a thing that gives you actually the inspiration for certain technology or culture, and then you can get a bit faster trying to catch the other nations in the game. So it's like quite delicate balancing and achieving mechanics. And I love this streamlined unit updates. It always updates the unit to the newest version of the thing. And in previous version, if you had this warrior in the beginning, you had to do, I don't know, 15 updates before you actually get like mechanized infantry. And even if you have researched already the mechanized infantry, you have to update it to something, and then musketeer, and then something, and infantry, and blah 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 blah. Now you just press the button once, and you get immediately the latest one. And the restart button. How cool is that? As I'm not really interested in fighting against or trying to beat almost impossible obstacles or enemies. I really like to play the game in a way that I play the game for a while, and if it starts to look too difficult, then I restart and try again until I get nice starting point with a lot of resources around, and then I can maybe survive. And that is the tactic why I have been able to beat the game on the 6th difficulty, where the computer is actually cheating quite a lot. It gets something like 10% advantage on everything, so I have to be at least 10% better than the computer to beat it. And quite often it happens that there are just so many barbarians that I just lose immediately. Now I have restart button, so let's start again. And yes, achievements. I think Civilization is a wonderful example of achievement design. They use the achievements in various roles for various kind of tasks, and the most common thing, which also other games have, is the progression meters. Quite often in the games, you get achievements when you complete a chapter or do something else, get to the level something and so on. That's one like quite obvious way of using the achievements. It's also used for measuring and like informing you about your skill level. If you manage to beat the game on the easiest difficulty, yeah, you get achievement from that. If you manage to beat the game on the most difficult level, then you get all the achievements because it's all the achievements of the difficulty levels. So it kind of tells you that, yeah, you are the master. It's also, achievements are used as lures for different game modes. Lately I have been playing this just to get achievements. I start not from the ancient era, but from the medieval and Renaissance eras, because there are different achievements for those. And then there are like these scenarios that I probably wouldn't play, but there are achievements for winning the scenarios, so I want to play them. And so on. There's like achievement work as setting long and mid-term goals for your gameplay also in a way, and so on. But I think all of these achievements in this game and in other games also, they are there to keep the player away from the frustration. You know that Michael or whoever Csikszentmihalyi flow channel theory, that you actually, if the game is too hard, you get like anxious. If it's too easy, you get bored, and so on. This kind of keeps me in a kind of flow level. It keeps me away from frustration. It keeps the interest of the game high. But I know that there are a lot of people who don't care about these achievements, and all the designers over there somewhere around the world who are listening to me right now, I would say that even if you don't like the achievements, if you hate them, if you think that they are a waste of time, maybe you should think that there are people that approve and appreciate them, and they want to have achievements, and the achievements make the game better for them, and they want to play your game more if they can try to get all these achievements. Oh, yeah, and when I was like making this presentation, I started somehow my mind wandered somewhere, and I started thinking about the difficulty things, how games are difficult, and there are like different kinds of difficulties in games, and difficulty levels and so on. And civilization is kind of complex system, and if you read about systems theory, then you can maybe get more about this idea. I don't know enough about that because I just found out this connection between difficulty and complex system theory. Complex systems are like, there are emergent situations and so many moving parts that affect each other that even the designers can't handle everything. It's kind of the game works on the edge of chaos. There are a lot of possibilities that break the game, that break the flow, break the difficulty, make exploiting the game possible, because it's just so complex that nobody can really understand it. And that is one reason why there has been like quite many updates to Civilization. They try to fix all these balancing issues and bugs and exploits in the game. And I know that is like quite modern procedure, that you release the game and then you let people play, and then you use the data to balance and fix the game. So it's kind of games as services related thing. And this is kind of boils also to the thing that I was talking earlier about roguelike games and emergent systems. It's like designers are enablers. They just give the players tools so the players can play, and even the designers might not know what's going to happen with these tools. Of course, Civilization still is quite a constrained system in a way that you just can't fly to the moon immediately or do something else. There are rules in the game. But then when you think about what's a like Lego game, Minecraft. If you think about Minecraft, yes, excellent Lego game, thank you. If you think about Minecraft, that's like here is the world, and here are the like physics and the tools, and help yourself. So it's like designers are enablers, not directors. Like in contrast, like if you think about other games, like Uncharted games, they are more like the designers are directors that try to control the players' flow and feelings and emotions and experience quite heavily. They give the player illusion of freedom and try to hide themselves somewhere in the background, but it's still like many of those studios, they actually have the directors, game director. It's like, yeah, I'm the one who says how it should be. But if you are making these kind of complex systems, you are just enabler. It's like, yeah, I just do this, you do your thing. And it's kind of different approach. Both are interesting, both are important, both are needed, but they are different ways to approach the game design. And this picture over here, beautiful colors, beautiful bars, so much art, wow. I try to break down the Civilization 6 difficulty. First, of course you can see it, a couple of those like groups of 6 bars, they are like the difficulty levels. And I try to figure out some elements that are important in the game, what the player does and how difficult those elements are on different difficulty levels. And it seems like the importance or the difficulty of different things varies depending on what difficulty level you are playing. And also what size of map you are playing on. And also, what was the last one? Yeah, the game speed. It's like, I would say, at least for me, it's more difficult to beat the game when I'm playing on quite hard difficulty. It's more difficult to beat the game on quick gameplay than on the slower ones, because on harder difficulties, the enemies or the other nations, they are more aggressive, so there will be more fights. And fights take time, and when I'm engaged in the fight with some nation, I use most of my resources in building an army, not the culture or not the science. So the time runs, I run out of time when I have to battle the other nations. But if I have more turns in the game, then I can like more easily like build an army, fight the guy somewhere, and still develop the science and so on. And of course, the like development times of things are dependent on the game pacing, but that still is kind of thing that changes what is difficult in the game. And I think this is kind of, I call this horizontal difficulty, because there are so many things that are interacting with each others, that it's a kind of complex system. It's hard to understand how it works and how this thing over here kind of affects this thing over here. And I read a wonderful book. Everybody should read also this book, because reading makes us smarter. Thinking Fast and Slow. It's one of the greatest books I've read during the last 6 months. In that book, the writer talks about our brain and thought processes on two systems. There's system 1, which is quick, intuitive, and kind of does most of our like working, and it he also says that the system 1 makes all the decisions if we decide not to let it do those decisions. And Civilization is a game that requires system 2 thinking. And system 2 thinking is more analytical, more slow. You don't let your brain do the first thing that it comes to mind. You actually kind of try to figure out different possibilities and so on. Yeah, I'll get back to this later, but I hope you got the brief idea of System 1 and System 2 and the horizontal difficulty of Civilization. Because we are going to Next Machina, Housemarque's latest wonderful shooter game that I'm really crappy at, but I like it. It's like twin stick shooter, and yeah, so on. And the game is known as quite difficult game. It's not the most difficult game in the world. There are some bullet hell things that are far more difficult shooters, but it's still quite difficult. The gameplay is excellent on its own category. The controls are responsive. The enemies are nice. The flow is good. I enjoy playing it, but I kind of bump into play wall at some point. It's not paywall because it's not free to play, but it's play wall. It just end up in the situation that I just can't advance anymore. Even it's with on easiest difficulty with unlimited retries. I just can't beat one level there. I've tried a couple of times. I'm playing the game to that point, and then that's it. Maybe at one point I will do that, but I haven't been able to do that yet. And it seems like this is something that happens every now and then. Also happened with Outland, which I was working on a couple of years ago. Also Housemarque game. It was quite easy for me until the one flying serpent thing, and I just can't beat it. And it's a shame that I can't win the game that I have been developing. In this game, the event horizon is about 5 seconds in the future, or maybe 10 if you are really good at it. But it's aimed for conqueror gamers who kind of get motivation from constant failing and repetition. And repetition is a mean of improvement, and it's called hard fun. And there are a lot of players like this, but I think also Housemarque found out that they have kind of reached all that kind of players, and it's really difficult to grow their market or sell more games because everybody who is interested is already having their games. Yeah, and this is a game that requires System 1 thinking. It's kind of thing that there's another book called The Best of the Possible Worlds, and it says that when you pour kind of energy into the system, the event that requires the least energy is going to happen first, and that's what System 1 is doing. You are getting inputs from your sensors, and then your brain is doing the first thing that comes into mind. And of course, each of us is wired differently in our brains, so it's a bit different for each of us, but it's still something that happens quite easily, quite intuitively. And here's a breakdown of Next Machina's difficulty. I found 3 bars there. It's maneuvering is the most important, most difficult thing. Then there's choosing the target where to shoot, which is not that difficult. And then there are tactical decisions for when to use the leaping thing. And when you compare these things, both games are quite difficult, but they are difficult in different ways. I had a couple of stories here about design flaws or designer flaws that I have met in different places, in escape rooms and in climbing wall scene, but since we are running out of time, I'm going to skip these. We can talk about these later. But main point over here is you have to know your audience. And you also have to understand the use cases of the audience. Where they are playing, why they are playing, and what they are trying to achieve with that. And for example, quite often the escape rooms are places for companies to go there on like one special day, and they go with the whole company, and they have this once in a lifetime experience, and it should be designed differently for those people than those who are like really enthusiastic and want to go there, and they want like extreme challenges and so on. I think this is the last like actual game that I have in this list, and this is older. But because this is my presentation, I can break the rules. I want to talk a little bit about Hex Cells, which is maybe the best puzzle game I've ever played. It's a combination of Minesweeper and Sudoku. And my take on this game is that it's like level design masterclass. The game mechanics are really simple. It's like just pure logic. You have a couple of numbers, then you have to figure out, based on those numbers, that where are the mines and where they are not. And when you find the places where there are no mines, then you get more information about the mines and so on. So game is simple. It's stripped from all the bling bling. It's just like pure logic. But the flow of these levels can be sometimes it's amazing how the guy who made this. It's a series of 4 games, and there are maybe 300 puzzles in combined. But it just feels so good when you find the finding position. It's like doing the obvious thing, and then you find out, oh right, this leads to this place, and this affects this number, and then it's just like feels like a living organism. Everybody should play that and try to play that in a way that you make no errors, because it's possible to beat the game without guessing. And that's the only like good way to play it. If you start guessing like yeah whatever, then it's not playing this game. Then you are doing something else. But the flow is wonderful. It's something that we could probably also use in some other games, or at least let it affect our thinking. Then a couple of miscellaneous thoughts in the end. AR is quite a hot topic because of Pokemon Go, and everybody is going to do AR in the future. If you are making location-aware AR games, keep in mind that sometimes people want to play the game where they are right now, and they are not probably able to go somewhere in a hotspot. And for example, I can't play Pokemon Go on my sofa at home because the closest hotspot or where there are some Pokemons, it's like I have to go 15 meters away from my home, which is really stupid. Then I'm outside, and I don't have the TV there anymore, and so on. So I like Pokemon Go. That's one of the maybe 3 or 4 free-to-play games that I actually put money in, and I put quite a lot of money in because I'm lazy. I want to play somewhere, so I don't want to go walking around and collecting balls. I just use a couple of euros and get some balls, so I can play the game and collect stuff because I'm a collector. So that's the thing, like how you can let people play where they are, but also how to like encourage them to go somewhere else. The length of the games is another thing I just was thinking about. Audiences are changing. The gamers are not anymore like only people who play games, and there are a lot of people who can't use 600 hours for Civilization 5, or they can't use, I don't know, 40 hours for some adventure game. We have a lot of room for games that last maybe even less than 1 hour, and they can still be meaningful and interesting for the people who play them. But there's also the other side of the thing, is that there are people, and there are a lot of mobile games that are kind of built to last. They are like never-ending stories, and you can always go back there, and then the session length is, I don't know, 5 minutes or something, but then you can't play longer because the game just prevents you. It just says you don't have energy, go somewhere, then come back after some hours or whatever. It's kind of, when we are making games, we have to think about what is the experience, how much of that experience we want to give to our players, and who is our audience. Once again, who is our audience for whom we are making the games, and how long they can actually focus on something. There's a reason, there must be a reason why most of the TV series, the episodes are 30 minutes or 60 minutes or something like that. It's like the attention span is something like that. And if we design our games for play sessions of 5 hours, then it kind of limits the audience. It pushes some people away. How can you? Good question is, how can you actually make smartwatch game that includes deep strategic thinking, and you can make the decisions in 5 seconds, but you can make 50 of those decisions during the day. Free to play. Oh, I skip it. Yes. All right. That's maybe all the thoughts I got from playing games this year, and thank you.
Is this on? Yeah. Thank you, Jaakko, for your thoughts and opening up your game experience from the past year. If you have any questions, please wait for the mic. So Mika here will bring you the mic. So any questions there?
Hey.
Hey.
So you were talking about stuff like following trails and investigating crime scenes in Batman. And I assume you are a player that enjoys that kind of gameplay.
Yes.
So I would like to hear how to do that well, because I have mostly experienced games where it's done really badly. In my opinion, The Witcher 3 is a good example. You have a special site that you have to activate so that you can see trails. So, okay, why do you have to activate it? Because the trails are completely invisible without it. So you can't play it the hard way even if you want to.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing that I was talking about with Quantum Break, that you actually have to use.
Another thing is when you investigate a corpse, you have to go through all the things, and afterwards the game even tells you what you were supposed to find out. So, okay.
Yeah, that sounds stupid. Unfortunately, I haven't played that game. I really want to play that game, but I'm stuck in Witcher 2 in one of the early bosses because I'm really bad at fighting. And that's a shame. I love the series. Actually, it's really difficult to give you exact points how to do this thing. But what we tried to do in Poland was that we were trying to give the player the responsibility of his actions and his exploration, and we put, I don't know, 1,000 items in the world, and maybe 200 of them were important, but we were not telling the player all the important items because in game test we found out that players are still going and trying to look at all the books and reading stuff and so on. But we actually had to highlight some items in the world, but we try to do it in a way that it's not too obvious. We try to make it in a way that when you are coming to the room, you probably see the highlights here and there, and then you do something else, and then you get lost, and then it's like, what I'm going to do here, and you look around, and then you may spot some highlight. So they are not like telling you like, go here, but it's more like, here's something. And I think that was pretty okay. It was not optimal way to do that, but it also made it possible that players could do much more research and exploration that we were thinking, but they would still always find the important parts.
Yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable. I just remember that actually, yes, this follow the main path is. I wanted to talk about that too, because when I played BioShock, I thought it was really bad because I didn't follow the story, because there was this big arrow telling you where to go.
Oh yeah, that I totally understand the like problem here. That if the game is telling you that, like, here is something, then you ignore everything else and you go there. And if the story is somewhere else, then you just like lose all the nuances and all the details, and then you are completely lost. So I think the games nowadays, they hold our hand too much. They like say like, come here. It's like for some reason, I don't know if it's the players or if it's the designers, but we are kind of impatient. We don't have time or will anymore like smell the roses and look around the corners and enjoy the sunset and maybe find something else. Or some people do, but for some reason someone somewhere thinks that players don't want to be like that, or the players need to be guided in the games, and that's a big dilemma. I would almost call it a problem, and we have to figure out how to do it well, how to let people be responsible of their actions again.
Thank you.
Yeah, so about those VR experiences, you talk about how you can supercharge the senses, so you show people like what the game character would experience rather than the raw sensory input. What do you feel about that balance? Like, should VR games focus more on that, or then again should people also explore the sort of experiences where you can use the raw sensory input and sort of design games more like that way?
I would say you can do whatever, but your design decisions have to be like conscious. You have to understand reasons why you are doing something and why you are not doing something, and then you can explain your decisions also to your team, who is probably a bit confused every now and then, and you have to like guide the development into some direction. I think it's quite often it's depends on the case and the game and the audience. It's always the audience. Like, you have to think. Maybe if you are making a game for larger audiences, you have to make it easier for them to understand. But it's possible to make games for niche audiences, like we maybe made the Pollen for a bit too niche audience. It looks like a kind of mainstream game, but then the gameplay and the storyline are quite different from what we are expecting from the games. And did I lose my thought? Probably. I can continue still. Yeah, when talking about this kind of superhuman skills that the interfaces give us or provide us, I'm quite sure that even also in VR, it's at some point we learn how to give the player the like a feeling of being Batman. But I haven't seen many games doing that properly or at all. Maybe, yeah, there aren't games that have been doing it properly. It still feels like I feel really clumsy when I'm playing VR action games because I'm clumsy and it doesn't like fit into the game well. But for some other players, they are like, I don't understand your difficulties with this game, and then they are doing somersaults and whatever on the ground, and it's like, damn, I want to sit down and just wave my hands, or maybe I just want to press buttons. I don't want these embodied experiences because I'm too lazy. Did I even answer any of your questions?
Yeah, kind of. I think I'd like a sort of a follow-up to this. Like, what do you like think that there is sort of a market for a sort of a paradigm shift where you like maybe games nowadays are maybe a bit about that sort of Batman escapism. So, but is there like a sort of possibility for like
Yes.
best VR games like do those sort of like those ground level things, that this is like a game for which a normal person can sort of experience, maybe a little less flashy than all the action stuff we have today?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a need, and people want to have like really different experiences. And if you have played Stanley Parable or Beginner's Guide, for example, they are like really strange experiences. But I think Beginner's Guide is one of the most important games that have been done in recent years, because it kind of gamifies the game design process, and that's something like, I don't know how much like monetary value are or is in these games, but there are like different kinds of values in games, not just money. And as designers or developers, maybe you have to like think like who you are and who you are not. Are you the one who is going for the money, or are you the one who is going for something bigger, even more money?
So we probably have still time for a question or two. Anybody?
So while you think about your questions, I have a couple of questions to Jaakko. So as a game designer, you need to play games, right? To the other people's games?
Among other things, I have to also play games.
Yes, but so explain us why did you play exactly these games for the past year and not something else as a game designer?
Civilization is obvious. Doom is like, my colleague told me that it's a great game, and even I might like it, and I liked it. I know the people who made Lydia. I wanted to play the game. Orwell. I was just searching for something kind of more laid-back stuff while I was playing Doom and Quantum Break, and I found that, and I ended up like sitting down for 4 hours just reading the text and doing the stuff and playing the game, and it was great. It was probably not accident. I maybe read about it in Pellet magazine. Hex Cells, I just tried to find some good puzzle games on PC, and that looked nice, and then I started playing, and it was awesome. Next Machina, well, it's a Finnish game. I like Housemarque. I wanted to try it out, even though I already knew that I will be really bad at it. What else I played? Batman VR. Well, if you are making VR games, you have to play like big things in the field. What else I had? Quantum Break. It finally. I love Remedy games, and it finally came on PC, and people said that it also works. So I tried it out and I enjoyed the whole 17 hours or something that I played it. And so yeah, this is basically I find my games through my network. People are recommending them, and sometimes I find them from Pelit magazine, which is the only game media that I read regularly. And sometimes I just go somewhere trying to find something that fills my need right now. And for Hexels, that was the case.
So could you tell us how do you kind of position these games into the current trends, or something that perhaps was missing from the games that you played?
Yeah, I didn't touch the mobile game scene here at all. I played a couple of mobile games. I like hill climb racing too, although I liked the first one better. I played the Walking Dead No Man's Land for a while, and I just don't find them interesting anymore. It's just like there's the business trend of these energy meters and boxes and gold and diamonds, and then you have cards and whatever, and then you have to wait, and then you can play for a while, and then you have to wait some more. And that's a trend, but it has been around for quite a long time, and I'm just eager to see when the mobile game makers actually make a game that I'm willing to put some money in. I have paid for Trials Frontier. It was nice. I really liked the game, so I wanted to pay for it. I bought something, and I still have that something there because I couldn't use it. I paid for this. I can't use this. It's like stupid. And I paid for Angry Birds, the Epic, the role-playing stuff, and I regretted it because it broke the balance of the game. And but it was still I liked the game. I played through it, and then I played Pokemon Go because I'm too lazy. I want to see something happening on that field, but for that's the big trend that like boring waiting game has been around for a while, and it's still going to be there a while, but maybe we are going to have something else also.
Okay. Any other questions?
This was mostly about you playing games to study them and learn about them. So do you have any kind of process while you're playing? Do you make notes, or do you do anything special while you're playing games?
No. I play the games and I play the games, then I start thinking about them, and then I play some more, and then I end up playing Civilization for 400 hours a year. That's my kind of pleasure. Yeah. Civilization is my pleasure game. It's I enjoy it, and I don't care about learnings. But I actually, when I started preparing for this presentation, that was the point when I started really thinking about the games that I have been playing. Sometimes there are some things that just pop up from the games, like for example, What Remains of Edith Finch, the walking simulator. It has some wonderful elements non-diegetic elements brought into the diegetic game world. It's artistic, it's great, and so on, and they are immediately there. But I'm kind of also, I'm old and slow, but I'm also slow in thinking, so my brain requires some time to process everything, and I just try to get the experience of playing the game first, and then starting to really analyzing it and thinking about the game, and how it relates to all the other games I've played, all the movies I've seen, all the books I've read, and so on.
So I think that's our time. We're out of time. But if you want to continue talking about your play experiences, your games, and maybe better processes for taking notes of gameplay while you play as a designer, so join us for the coffee on the coffee room here at Design Factory. And those of you on the online stream, just please tune in back on the 30th of October, and we have a new speaker then. So, yep. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.